truth, and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. So, come on, guys, we're going to go right back in here again. Man, I am so excited about this interview that I'm going to do because we have a member from the Love Collective that's going to get on here. We're going to talk about current events. The events that we're going to talk about is the deal that was made in Afghanistan as well as the pullout. Because the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know that this deal was orchestrated and initiated by President Donald Trump. But the crazy thing about this deal is that this deal was made with the Taliban. It wasn't made with the Taliban and the Afghan government. And so a lot of people are saying, because of current events, and if you see the optics of people trying to, hold on planes, going over walls, trying to get out of Afghanistan, if you see it, it's going to make you think like, yo, what the hell happened? But at the end of the day, I want you to understand we have been fighting this war in the Middle East for at least 20 years. I have a buddy of mine. He went to Desert Storm. He was in the National Guards. He ended up, getting deployed. He was in Desert Storm. And that was when I was 19. So, we've had many different missions since then in the Middle East. And so today we're going to have RL. He's going to be on the show. But the one thing I want you to understand and know is that if you're going to criticize Joe Biden, if you're going to criticize the administration, a lot of that blame goes to past administrations as well. Because this thing first started with President Bush. It started over 9/11. And I totally get why we did what we did. But the one thing that I appreciate about President Biden right now, he said that another president will not inherit this war. So I get that, and I love that, and I applaud him for that. Now, granted, everybody is saying, oh, he messed up, President Trump could have did. I mean, man, please. President Trump is not even in office. He is armed quarterback from Florida. That's what he is. And those that believe that he could have did a better job, my question to you is, how come he did not initiate it? How come he did not initiate and start pulling people out, giving people visas? He made the process even harder. And these are allies and people that are working over there. Nah, the concern with him was the election. And what we're dealing with right now is not only this, but we are still dealing with COVID. When Joe Biden got into office, he hit the ground running against COVID. Yeah, he has some executive orders and things of that nature, but the one thing that I want you to always understand and know is that this war was going to come to an end. And the crossroad was, hey, do we take and honor what President Trump put in place, or do we do something else? He honored it. And the crazy thing about it, man, please, that pullout was going to be difficult, and you just can't like Thanos snap people like that. You can't do it like that. So, hey, we can ready to call RL. Hold tight. What's going on with you, man?
How y'all doing? How you doing? I'm fine. Family out in Arizona, so, it was really nice to come out here.
All right, man, look, let me give you some applause. I just want to say thank you for being on the show, man, really. So, man, how's the weather out there? Because I was reading one of your posts, you were saying, like, yo, man, I could live out here.
So the only thing about it, listen, man, I'm real with you, is the heat. The heat is ridiculous out here, especially from the month of, like, July. They say roughly May to September, it can get a bit unbearable. But then you live in a desert, so, I mean, come on, what do you expect? It's not called a desert because it's known for its glaciers, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So, man, let me just give you this first question, man. Tell us who you are.
All right, just a normal dude trying to be better than I was yesterday.
Okay, all right, I like that, man. Let me give you some applause. So, I know we're going to talk about current events and everything, so I want to ask you, What made you go into the military?
All right, so back in the mid '90s, right, there wasn't a whole lot of, I guess, options in the city. I went to school with a couple cats who actually either caught some real charges or were murdered. So you kind of started looking around like, I got to get out of here. And I mean, I had the smarts to go to college, but I knew I didn't have the discipline. I mean, I knew that. I barely went to high school, right? So college really wasn't the thing I was going to do. So when you only have a whole lot of options, I'm like, hey, shit, I can do that. And I remember I had an instructor in high school. We had our ROTC. I wasn't in ROTC, but I still had him for science. He was a black dude. He used to always ask, like, a lot of young black kids, like, what the hell y'all doing? I mean, he talked real with us. And so, you know, I was like, well, you know, I don't really have no plans. He's like, you need to get out of here. Have you ever thought about the military? And I was like, I never thought, but I never not thought. And I remember sometime in, like, my junior year of high school, he signed up a lot of us to take the ASVAB just on GP. And then I remember I came to school high as hell. I mean, I was on the move, right?
Yeah.
And my teacher says, hey, Mr. Simmons, you need to take that ASVAB in the library. And I was like, sweet, because I was high. I was like, this is going to give me 4 hours of, like, what you call it, an excused absence. I ain't got a hookie or cut class to hang out in the hall. Yeah. I mean, we had just smoked before we came to school, so I was on the move. So I go in there. The test is actually really easy. It's the Armed First, what they call it, ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. It's not really a traditional test that teaches you, like, I mean, there are some questions like, what is 2 plus 2? Or Johnny had 3 apples, Sally gave him 4. How many do you have left? But it's not designed to measure your scholastic ability. It's more your aptitude, your ability to learn. So based on how you score in, like, 6 different categories, like math, English, writing, arithmetic, and so on and so forth, technical knowledge, it kind of identifies the military, what jobs they're going to offer you. So based on your scores, when you actually go into MEPS, and then the career counselor kind of says, okay, you scored high. Let's say you wanted to be a welder.
Yeah. But
you didn't score high enough in science or mechanical ability. Service, you can be a welder, you're just not going to do it for Uncle Sam. Okay. So the more technical jobs in the service kind of depend a lot more on the score you get, your aptitude line score.
So what did you end up doing in the military?
So look, man, I had a few jobs. I think some of it was kind of ADHD, misdiagnosed. I really came in to be air crew, to sit on the plane. I wasn't the pilot, but I would operate weapon systems, right? Pretty much hunting submarines.
Okay.
The service kind of phased that job out. So then they sent me to school to become pretty much a carpenter, an engineer, what they call combat engineer. Yeah. I had some I guess drywall experience working with my grandfather and uncle, but by no means was I good at it. So I did that job for a few years. I was like, oh, F this, I'm out of here.
Okay.
So around the time, so that was in the early 2000s, I was like, man, fuck this job. It's not what I want to do. I really didn't like the military when I first came in, but every time it was time for me to re-enlist, I was always somewhere cool, like Sicily, Spain, Puerto Rico, Guam. So, you know, when you're 22 hanging on the beach in Australia, and everyone's like, oh, man, fuck this job. And you're like, well, if I get out, well, I'm going back home. What am I going back to? Nah. So it ain't a bad gig. So then I became a scout in the early 2000s, and I mean, I loved that job. But that's pretty much a grunt. That's the guy on the poster with the paint on his face, yeah, and all the guns. So around the time Iraq kicked off, went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan a couple times, Iraq a couple times. And then get a little bit older. I was like, man, I'm too old to be climbing up mountains and shit. So I got a new job, which was called Civil Affairs Specialist. That job was more, I mean, it was just as combat focused, but more academic side. We did like a lot of, like, almost like a think tank, a lot of studying of people, understanding human behavior, why certain people fight the way they fight, for what causes, shit like that.
Okay.
2018.
That was back in 2018?
No, that's when I retired.
Oh, that's when you retired. So let me ask you, what year did you go in? Because I know my buddy, it was like in the 90s when we went in. When he went in.
96.
Okay, you went in 96. He actually went in 91 and everything.
Yeah.
So how many tours did you do?
I went to Iraq twice, Afghanistan 3 times.
Okay. So and you got out in 2018.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this, because I know a lot of times people try to dismiss the fact of post-traumatic stress disorders and even some of the injuries that people have had being overseas. So let me ask you this. What's the whole deal with people trying to diminish that, and also even the red tape when it comes to veteran affairs?
So the first part of that, I think stigma with PTSD is any form of mental health in society, especially Western society. We're not taught the value. Like, we look at everything from a cause and effect basis, which isn't necessarily wrong, but every action has to have an identifiable cause. Yeah. But we always want the cause to be something tangible. That way we can turn around and say, well, if you just don't do this anymore, you won't have this problem. So when you start talking about mental health, mental illness awareness, then it's not quite that simple, because some things are done like chemical control, chemical imbalances, impulse control. Yeah. Some people are predispositioned to have certain triggers already. So the problem with PTSD diagnosis is that sometimes it's underdiagnosed, but then sometimes it's overdiagnosed, right?
Yeah.
Because what constitutes, so PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. So any stressful event under any circumstance, routinely enough, can cause a person's, physiology, psychology to adapt in such a way it becomes detrimental.
Yes.
So you see this in people who suffered abuse at home, people who were like and worked for like a toxic supervisor. So it's not always something based on someone shooting at you. In that, you know what I mean? People in the hood come through that shit. Cats who did some real-time incarceration, because your body eventually, in order to cope with a stressful, with constant stress, has to callous itself. And unfortunately, the callus behind it is the, the catalyst for the disorder, because if you never really focus, or if you never really deal with it or attack something, it's kind of always there. And I mean, you can go on living your life and never have an episode or an outbreak or something else trigger it, and then bring that to the forefront, right?
Yeah.
And the next part, you said Veterans Affairs. So yeah. I've had a pretty decent experience with the VA. So I can't argue from the standpoint of what's wrong with it. I can tell you what I've observed. It's such a large, it's huge. It's massive. There's so many veterans available for care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So for example, if you live somewhere, we'll say in Brooklyn, right? You can go to VA. There's probably like 3 VA centers in New York City alone, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want, you probably go out Long Island somewhere if you were just feeling a little bit more pretentious and you want to be bothered with the city. So you have options, right?
Yeah.
Suppose you were some cat in Puerto Rico or some cat on the farm in Idaho somewhere, where the closest hospital, let alone VA center, is 300, 400 miles away. So I'll give you a quick anecdote. So I'm in Arizona right now, and I got some other friends who live in Arizona, and my friend lives about 6 hours away from me. So when you grow up in somewhere like Philly, you don't quite understand how big these southern and western states are. If I'm in Philly and I drive 6 hours south, I'm in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in Arizona and I drive 6 hours south, I'm still in Arizona.
Wow, yeah.
So just to give you the concept, so when you have somebody who lives off the path, it's a lot harder to get to treatment, right?
Yeah.
And then there may be, unfortunately, healthcare is a resource-based product in America, right? Where you're not going to have $1,000 EKG system in an area where you only have 3 people who, you know what I mean? The needs are going to meet what's available. So I think people who live a lot further from the medical grid are the ones who have to struggle more to get access. Or what's now happening is, so you have a lot more women veterans reaching like retirement age. You know, because women were allowed in the military going back to World War II, but they really didn't join in droves to like the early 70s. So most of the women who did a 20 to 30-year career would have been retiring about 2000, right?
Yeah.
So right about now, they're starting to become 65, 70. So a lot of female healthcare just didn't exist in the VA because it wasn't a need. Again, you're not going to have I don't know the medical term, an OBGYN clinic per se, and you got 99.9% male. It's just not, you know what I mean? It's not feasible.
It's not feasible.
So
I totally get that.
I think, and then so mental health with the VA is also, unfortunately, in all healthcare, we're playing backup, right? We're always catching up to where something is 4 years ago. I think the United States, unfortunately, got spoiled on war. So there was a whole generation, political generation as well as society generation between 1970 and 2000 who never experienced war. So that's a 30-year stint. It wasn't necessarily peaceful because the military's always had war somewhere or battle somewhere, but at such a level where it was so at the forefront. So that generation got comfortable. So, you know, things like mental health, look at, you know, if we go look at a little bit of Reaganomics in the mid-'80s, a lot of social service systems were cut in the government because they were deemed wasteful, right?
Yeah.
So, again, anything that doesn't offer an immediate tangible result usually is determined to be wasteful. That's just the sadness of society. And how do you really justify like the benefit of mental health? Because the only time you ever see the problem is if somebody goes off the complete rocker, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody's getting up every day going to work, you don't know. So it's one of those things, hey, chop it off the block. So unfortunately with mental health care in the VA, it's not immune to that as well.
Okay.
And then the military, and then I'll close out with that part. The military is a snapshot of society. So we take from everywhere in society. So there are kids who join the service, they probably mentally weren't right when they joined any damn way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's probably kids who were like, I know, had great, you know, stable two-parent households, learned all the good coping skills, had like Mike Siebert for a dad from Growing Pains. Then they go overseas and they see these traumatic events, and depend on who they were, I guess, before the service will determine, can they cope? Can they not cope? And then, you know, living in the combat zone, you have to almost like I would imagine somebody's incarcerated, you have to learn how to adapt to that environment, which means you have to walk with a certain level of conflict already in your spirit.
Yeah.
Because when you daily face the thought of your own mortality, if you didn't learn how to cope, you would probably go crazy.
Yeah.
That's why veterans probably have like really sick and twisted dry humor. Because sometimes you just gotta laugh at the shit that's fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. Keep from going insane.
Right?
Yeah. So hey, I want to bring it forward because, you know, the crazy thing now is that we have this pullout in Afghanistan, and in all actuality, you know, the deal was brokered with President Trump, and a lot of people are saying that you know, Biden messed up because if you look at the pictures and the videos, people trying to get out, they actually, you know, hanging on planes and dropping off of planes that are trying to take off. I mean, it's just crazy. And a lot of people are saying, well, you know, we're getting out there the wrong way. What about the weapons? What about this? What about that? What about the American people and the allies? I'm like, hey, it wasn't going to be pretty. Any type of way that it was going to go, it wasn't going to be pretty.
I agree with that. So what would be your question? And so this is we have to put our shoes on and walk through the mud to get through this one. So let's do it.
Yeah. Because my question is, when you, my biggest question is, everybody is saying that President Trump could have did better, and my question is that when he initiated and started this deal, where was the Afghan government in that? As well.
All right. So
yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, any of the views I give are mine and not necessarily reflect those of the United States government. It's not a policy. I'm just some dude talking with some experience.
I like that.
Hey, so that being said, I'm not familiar with all the specifics of the President Trump deal, other than I guess they negotiated. We were going to leave on a certain date, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the current administration, as anything, whoever's the guy in charge kind of. So there's a whole lot of the blame sandwich to go around because what people don't always remember with U.S. policy. There's what you do in the back room, right?
Yeah.
There's what you say on TV, and there's what the reporters show. So there's CNN effect. Tons of programs have gone to shit because the reporter caught the bad picture and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the deal was negotiated to leave. Now, when we went to Afghanistan in 2001, we went from a position of retaliation, right?
Yeah.
Some towers was knocked down. The Taliban was the government of Afghanistan. The Taliban made it comfortable for Al Qaeda to permeate through the country, right?
Yeah.
So Al Qaeda organized the attacks in the United States, and this is just the government take. So we can play the whole. We can have a whole nother conversation about did Bush do it? Who knew about it? But this is the accepted version, I guess, for the listening pleasure, right?
Yeah.
So it was all based on retaliation. Now Afghanistan is one of those countries that's landlocked, right? Completely landlocked, and it sits at about 6,000 feet up. It's on a high desert. You know what I mean? So it's not a desolate country per se, but a lot doesn't grow there. But it's mineral rich. You also got to understand how Afghanistan became Afghanistan. So the British were in India forever, right?
Yeah.
And the Muslims in the north didn't really get along with the Hindus in the south. So Britain split up India into Pakistan. That's why Pakistan and India still have a little bit of beef over certain regions, right? But then there was a little bit other area of lawlessness, as the British would call it, which was north of Pakistan, called Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan was made up of multiple tribes. And when I say tribes, I don't mean like a clique of 10 people. I mean like people who get their ethnic identity from these cultural traditions, right? So you have the Pashto, the Barakzois, the Daris, the Uzbeks, the Tajiks. So there's all these, and those are just the main ones. Not the main ones. Those are the ones that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
Most of these tribes do not speak the same language. So remember, the Western world decided that henceforth forevermore, this area of the world will be called Afghanistan. Nobody ever asked the people in the ground, do y'all want to be Afghan? Do you even like those people across the river? So for generations, this area of area was just allowed, like, so some small autonomy, you know?
Yeah.
And in doing so, kind of strongman politics took over. Whoever was the strongman or whatever the strongman group was in control. So Taliban now, Arab, the word Talib in Arab is student, right?
Yeah.
So Taliban considered themselves some students. This is probably going around to like the 1950s, plus or minus 10 years. And they were backed, not the Taliban. So the Taliban were like the Arab Enlightenment. I'm probably got some whole shit wrong. There's probably somebody tearing YouTube up to disprove it. So I'm going to give the short answer because I don't have notes in front of me and I don't want to put false information out. The Taliban had a lot of U.S. support. And it got more U.S. support in the 80s because Russia tried to annex Afghanistan in the 70s, right? 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
And because of that, so I want to say like 77, 78, Russia went into Afghanistan and left in 89 somewhere. So that's during the Cold War. So the U.S. was supporting the Taliban through back channels, right? So, like, we liked Osama bin Laden until we didn't like Osama bin Laden kind of thing, right? But the Taliban was the government in play in Afghanistan on September 11, 2001, right? Yeah. Al-Qaeda was a terrorist affiliate that was allowed to permeate and operate in Afghanistan. But Al-Qaeda was not the Taliban or vice versa. Now, were there guys who identified Taliban with Al-Qaeda support? Probably, but for textbook purposes, those were not the same group. unfortunately, in Western world, we never saw that. We never took the time to understand that they were all terrorists. So the problem when you look at everything like that is you kind of see everything from a real linear perspective. And we can go into that later, but like you were saying, so that's who was in charge on 2001, the Taliban.
Okay.
So so after the retaliation attacks in, like, we'll say from about 2000 to 2004, we pushed Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan, and we pushed the Taliban. Pretty much, we pushed Taliban leadership back into Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
And Pakistan has an area called the Northern Federal Administered Tribal Area, something like that, which is pretty much an area of Pakistan, and it's just Pakistan government has a very loose, whatever you call it, like very little oversight in that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just kind of exist. Don't raise no hell. Don't come down here in the cities with the BS, and we're not going to bother you. So a lot of Taliban leadership went back into those areas. And then a lot of average day Taliban was just told pretty much, don't fight the Americans. They're going to leave one day.
Yeah.
So we, in somewhere around 2004, realized, okay, we bombed the shit out this country. We done brought war to this country. What are we going to leave this country when we get out of here? So there was a noble idea that we want to try to create a functioning government in this part of the world,
okay.
a stable democracy.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where we go into the adventure phase. So remember, from 2001 to 2004 was retaliation. Like, we were pissed off, somebody bombed us, and somebody's going to pay. 2004 to about, I'd say 14, was the adventure phase, where we were trying to establish a legitimate government in Afghanistan.
Okay.
From the auspices so that no terrorist cell could ever take hold in that country to cause attacks all around the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then somewhere around 2014, the war wasn't fashionable anymore. It wasn't cool to fight, so it was like, how the hell do we get out of here? And that's 2014 to 21, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, because my question has always been, how did the Afghan government, rise up? Because it's almost like they did. I can't say they had soldiers. They had more like a police force per se that, did double duty. They were the police force as well as the army.
Well, we built the U.S. I'm not saying it's the coalition, NATO. It was a NATO-supported endeavor. So NATO, it wasn't just the U.S. We probably the largest contributing nation in the coalition, but we weren't the only.
Okay.
So we did. We built an army. We built a national police. I tried to build our strength, our established the same function of governments that would exist in like a Western democracy. Like Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Defense, just all these various bureaucracies that it takes to run a government, right?
Yeah.
We try to do that.
Yeah.
But remember, like I told you in the beginning, the people of Afghanistan at the personal level, not the national level, the people never saw themselves as Afghan. It would be like saying going to New York City and going into Brooklyn and be like, listen, y'all not from Brooklyn no more. Yeah, that's a great example. Y'all not from Brooklyn no more. Y'all New Yorkers. Yeah, we always call ourselves New Yorkers. No, but you're New Yorkers now. Lose the Brooklyn talk, right? Yeah. But then going into Fort Greene, Bed-Stuy, is it Howard Beach? What is that? Not Howard Beach. What's that place? Brighton Beach. Going to different spots in Brooklyn saying, listen, y'all no longer in Bed-Stuy, Brighton Beach. You're not even Brooklyn. You guys are all New Yorkers now. So already it was hard enough to get Brooklyn to buy into the fact that we all New Yorkers. You think Brighton Beach wants to be New York, let alone they barely get along with across Bed-Stuy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But so that was kind of what happened. So again, the coalition is trying to build a New York-based government and make that government legitimate in the eyes of every borough, but in the eyes of Like, not only is it legitimate in the eyes of everyone in Queens, everyone in Left Rack, Corona, Jamaica, Southside, like, all, you know what I mean? All of them now got to see legitimacy too.
Yeah.
So some places might have been easier, especially if it's a little give to get here. Like, okay, so what we were doing is trying to recruit people from those areas to represent the Afghan National Army.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But unlike the U.S. Army, so we take for granted in the United States how multicultural we really are, as much as we say we're not, right? You can look at our military and see black faces, brown faces, red faces, yellow faces, right? And we say, okay, you guys are all American, right? So while we may never understand the cultural difference between somebody who's Pashtun and someone who's Tajik, they know and they know and they know. And not only do they know the differences, if there's any fuse in there, they know my people didn't like your people from the time of long ago. Like, it goes, like, gets real prophetic. We've been arguing with them since ancient times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get
like,
it.
Omar the tent maker in 500 AD had beef with somebody, and that's why we're still scrapping. So we don't really take the time to understand that. So we kind of, hey, you guys are Afghan now, knock it off. Fight for your country, build a better country. And a lot of people are like, this ain't my fucking country. I'm from Ptsd.
Yeah, yeah, okay, I totally get it now. So let me ask you that. Let me ask you this. Would you say that's the reason why it fell apart? Like the army fell apart? That
yeah.
Will you say that's the reason why the army fell apart that fast?
Yes. So you have to understand something too, and you have to look at history with this one. No people ever in the history of the world have ever been conquered unless they were completely wiped off the face of the earth. What has happened is people have been conquered to the level of capitulation where they play nice. Scottish people still don't like the British. And when you think of that, you say that's the United Kingdom, which is Scotland, Britain. Scotland, Great Britain, Wales, and Northern Ireland make up the United Kingdom. So to everyone else that's not over there, that's all British. Call somebody from Scotland British.
Yeah.
They gonna put the hands to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like calling somebody Jamaican and they Haitian.
Exactly. So, right? So when you understand that, you understand no people in the history of the planet have ever been defeated, even though we try to talk like it. In any country where we were at war and we quote-unquote defeated them, notice the United States is still in that country with bases. There's still bases in Japan. There's still bases in Korea. There's still bases in Germany.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think if the U.S. pulled all their bases out of Germany, they're going to rise back into the Third Reich. But this is almost 100 years now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
So when you try to create a government, you have to really realize, do these people even want to be a government?
Yeah.
And, of course, remember now, politicians get reelected off of promises, right?
Yeah, exactly.
High-ranking officials in the military get promoted, not for telling the truth per se. Like, I'm not saying that they're all noble liars, but I'm going to say there's no market for the truth. The market is telling us what we want to hear, right?
Yeah.
So going back to the military with promotions, promotion is based up to senior levels is based on a lot of who likes you. Some of it is luck, too. I mean, I don't want to say anybody who's got high rank didn't earn it, but a lot of it is right place, right time. But there's also a lot of places who will vouch for you. Yeah. So you don't make these senior ranks in the military because you're an asshole who always argues and fights back. And I don't mean it in the traditional sense of like, the military does like type A motherfuckers who will take convicted stands on stuff. Like, no, we're not going to do it. But there's a certain level of that before the system is like, no, we need to know you're going to play the ball with us. Like, don't mind you guys fighting amongst each other about how to do this, but there's a policy line we want, and we need you to fight. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So,
unfortunately, a lot of people who get promoted up aren't going to rock the boat too much. So now you have a system of people where we say anybody who served in Afghanistan is not surprised the way it went down. What hurts is that, we put a hell of a lot of effort out there, right? That's the part that hurts.
Yeah.
But to say it wasn't going to go that way, I don't know anybody who was in Afghanistan of a certain rank. Now, maybe there's some generals somewhere, some politicians who were like, well, we really tried. But anybody who was grunt on the ground was like, nah, man, this is a Band-Aid that needed to be ripped off. So when you understand that, you start to see, okay, yeah, the army was loosely like held together,
Yeah.
Ho Chi Minh said something in Vietnam, and I'm paraphrasing. He said something to the effect about we're fighting the Americans. We'll just wait. Eventually, they'll grow tired.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. There's Americans who actually forgot we were still in goddamn Afghanistan. Like, there's people who've seen this shit on TV like, what?
Yeah.
And the outrage is why I think it's kind of, especially when you see it from like politicians, it's a little disingenuous. Like, we've been fucking there 20 years. If you was really upset about this thing, we would have been getting like, this is why you can't blame Trump or Biden.
Yeah.
This thing took 20 years, and two of the presidents had 8 years over there.
Yeah.
The last two had a total of 5 years combined. If you combine Trump and Biden's term, they had 5 years in this country.
Yeah.
If you combine Bush number 2 and Obama's term, they had 16 years.
Yeah.
Politically speaking, you don't have to like either one of these as a president. But this ain't they. This is, there will be things they have to own because that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But if you and if I sell you a bad house and you're a carpenter and you come in and I ain't level with you how fucked up the foundation was, yes, you moved your family in there when the roof fell. You got to own that as a father. But when they starting to hang you out to dry for, you're like, whoa, you ain't call that dude in here who built this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the crazy part about it is that I've been telling people, I've been arguing on social media about this I'm saying for at least 2 days. And I'm like, hold up, man. This is not all Biden's fault. And the narrative that everybody, he's leaving Americans. I'm like, he ain't nobody. You make it sound like he could just Thanos snap everybody out of there.
So this is the $1 million question I would have.
Yeah.
How committed to further war is the American population?
Exactly.
For everybody that wants the U.S. to do something, whatever something is, I have an idea. Americans are bloodlust. We love this. We love the thought of bombing shit out of somebody, right?
Yeah.
But for everybody that wants to see that, it could be done. We've proven we can do that. But does the American population have the stomach for that?
Exactly.
So this is where it gets funny with war and not war, conflict. When there's no exit strategy, you sign yourself up to be there forever.
Exactly.
So I do think there's some things that probably should be done way different. But at this point, I don't know. I don't know what can make it all better, because what is the stomach of the American population? What will the Congress support? See, in the old frame of the Constitution, only Congress could declare a war. Congress has abdicated a lot of their legislative power to make war to the executive branch, but the Constitution's pretty much spelled out. Like, presidents shouldn't be able to send troops anywhere longer than 6 months. After that, they got to come home, because Congress should be the one that votes on the operation and then says, okay, because we voted for it, we have the authority to fund it, right?
Exactly.
So that's the purse strings coming into play. And I mean, that's what I said. If Congress thinks we should go get Americans to do whatever, then Congress needs to sit down and have a session and authorize the president to use the military to do certain things. But again, nobody wants to do that part.
Yeah.
If you want to send the bombers back, but then how are y'all staying over here? Because we were here for 20 years.
Yeah. That's what I've been saying.
If people want to stay here, it's cool if we drop a couple planes and drop some bombs. What happens when we got to send some soldiers and some kids start coming back in boxes?
Yeah, nobody likes that. And then they protest.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So and the crazy thing is that, like I said, I was like, look, it might look ugly, but I look at it, it's a beginning. And right now we're like in the messy middle, and pretty soon this whole thing is going to be done. I like the fact that President Biden has said that no president will be inheriting this war. I like that. Now, I don't know if it'll actually stay that way, but I like what he's saying right now.
This is, it's the thing that with military adventuring, you don't have an exit strategy, then it's going to be defined for you on someone else's terms.
Yeah.
I don't say I'm definitely, I guess I'm a little oxymoronic because I served in the military, went to war, but I don't believe in war because it happens. I wish it wasn't a reality, right? But I believe if you are going to go to war, you need to understand why you're here. And you need to understand what you want this shit to look like when it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Because if not, then you're going to sign yourself up just to be somewhere. And then before you know it, you're justifying your existence only to feed the reason why you're there.
Yeah.
A lot of corporations got rich off of the war.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of government contractors got paid off this shit. A lot of motherfuckers got reelected. A lot of people got promoted. So I'm also saying it's a racket operation.
Yeah.
And to those people, I don't think it mattered who won. Like, they don't give a shit who won or lost in there because they still sold bombs. They still sold weapons. They still sold weapon systems.
Yeah.
Now, it's not all for bad. Let's say every conflict does provide, what do you call it, like, or like the system, like better technology, technological advances.
Yeah.
So so through 20 years of war with healthcare alone, with trauma healthcare, we have and it's been adopted by civilian practices now. If you're in a car accident, you lose your leg, there's some stuff that was perfected in battlefield medicine so that the prosthetic you get be like almost like a bionic leg, man.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, it used to be like a pirate peg.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, it's not all for naught, but that's just how it works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this, and we get ready to take it home. With everything that has happened, what do you say to those who may have went over there? Because a lot of people are feeling like, yo, man, we did this for nothing. What do you say to that?
Same thing I've been saying. Look, I'm going to say what I tell people. I say this is what I tell myself. We went over there and we did our goddamn job. We did the best of our fucking ability. We didn't always agree with the shit. We probably complained just as much as a lot of other people about why we were doing it. But we went over there and we did what was asked of us. And we did improve the lives for a few people. And hold your fucking head up. And the failure isn't on any of us who went over there. This is military, civilian organizations like aid workers, some, like missionary charity type work that went going over there. There's a whole generation of Afghan girls now who are educated and literate. So while the Taliban might have taken control, I think it's going to be a lot harder to subjugate the Afghan society of 2020 only because there's a whole generation of young women and young boys who grew up on hip hop. When I was in Iraq, you know how we knew we were in Iraq for a long goddamn time?
Yeah.
So whenever the military deploys somewhere really long and you start seeing the army coming in, they have AFN network, Armed Forces News Radio, right? But it's pretty much like radio station, like it's your Power 105, right?
Yeah.
So of course they play all the stuff young service members like. So it would be like the country western hour, the hard rock hour, the hip hop hour. And what you'll start to see, and you can see it in places like Japan and Korea already, but you'll see like in Iraq, you will see the genres of kids fitting into whatever the group that listens to country and western will start dressing that way. The group that listens to hip hop will start. This is why I say hip hop is universal, brother. It was started in the 70s as just kids hanging out on the break is universal. Every place I've been, especially any place I've been that was like war-torn impoverished, had a kid in there who was rapping, who was talking about political strife. It was dope. They was rapping in their own language, and they had like a following. And I didn't know what the hell they was talking about, but I know passion when I see passion, right?
Yeah.
So now that the U.S. is leaving, you got a whole generation who grew up listening to 50 Cent, so they started researching, and it's just going to be a lot harder to subjugate that society. Which unfortunately, this is what the tragedy is in all nations. Any nation that exists today in any form has had to have their civil war and their own internal bloodletting. Every nation that is in existence today, some are still involved in it. Some of it's been going so long we don't even consider it an internal strife.
Yeah.
The United States had its own civil war 150 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Afghan, I don't say the Afghan, the people that occupy the area known as Afghanistan are going to have to try this one out unless the coalition is willing to come back in there.
Yeah.
Because those are political, but then at that point, that's a political answer. Like, none of us on this phone can do that.
Exactly.
But I'm telling you, there's a whole generation of young girls who got educated. It ain't gonna be so easy.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we can say, at the end of the day, that's the takeaway. We did our job. We changed the lives of a lot of people, and now, our presence is
a lot of fucking people.
Yeah. And now you can actually say that, yo, man, we're leaving we may be leaving, but our presence is going to be here.
And who knows? I mean, like I said, it's very heartbreaking to watch how it's collapsing. But that's the part that none of us sitting here can really control. So I would tell anybody, if anybody here, if someone does feel strongly either one way or another, contact your elected officials at your federal level, your senator and your representative. Blow their phone or write them a letter.
Yeah.
Send them an email. If you live close enough to D.C., go knock on their office door and let them know, because if you want to see more done, like you think that we should be going door to door, getting on the Americans out, and I do think we should be doing our damnedest to try to protect those that worked with us. But that authority has to come from the Congress.
Exactly.
The Congress has to go and have a meeting and discuss. But hell, they can't even pass a fucking bill to fix bridges.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that's what people have failed to realize. Like, under the framers of the Constitution, committing military to anything should have always been a role of the legislature.
Yeah.
Because then they would set the conditions on leaving. And the only thing the president would do is then contact the military and say, hey, listen, this is what look like. You have to leave when you do this. Figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've even
so
heard... No, go ahead.
Okay. If we're not leaving fast enough, get on the horn and call your elected officials. And if you need us to stay a little bit longer, I understand. No matter which way you do it, you're not going to get the shit without the sugar or the sugar without the shit.
Exactly.
So are you prepared to eat it when it don't taste so good?
Yeah, exactly. Because I've even heard that the visas, they have special visas for those that help the troops, that those are even being hemmed up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole. I don't know that part, but I've heard that too. That's what I said. But get on the horn, like go down to your state, not state level, your federal level representative.
Yeah,
call them. Yeah. Blow their phone up. Most of them are on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them know, like, hey, listen, this is bullshit. You need to fix this, or hey, look, don't ever do this shit again. Whatever, however you feel, but that's what it's going to take. Because again, there's a lot of Americans who forgot we were in Afghanistan, so they turned on the news last weekend.
Yeah.
So that's just as tragic in and of itself.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's crazy, man. It's like you said, a whole lot of people forgot, and I mean that's how long we've been there. It's like, wow, it's not even. Before, you used to hear about it every night on the news. Now it's like COVID then took over everything.
Yeah.
So
and that would be my point in wrapping up. Any veteran, man, he just fuck his ass, goddamn head up. And reach out. If you need to talk to somebody, reach out, hit the VA up.
Yeah.
The VA, as soon as you call the VA, there's a little teleprompt they say, and if you're like a veteran in crisis, please call this number or go to your local emergency room.
Yeah.
But it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to be heartbroken. It's okay to shed some tears. Because a lot of us did lose our youth over there,
Yeah.
I did 22 years in the military. What was it, like 18 of those 22, this nation was at war. So over half of my time in the service was in the state of either going to war, coming home from war, getting ready to go to war.
Yeah. Man. Hey, look, man, I just want to say thank you for your service, man. And I so appreciate you being transparent with the audience and everything, man. Let me give you some applause.
You too kind, brother.
No problem, man. No problem, man. But I wanted to hear this from a soldier's perspective and everything, because everybody can say what they want on social media. You can put the blame wherever you want to put the blame. But at the end of the day, I'm like, let me hear from a person that actually have boots on the ground, to get their perspective. So, man, I just want to say thank you for letting us in on this, man, being transparent and giving your opinion on this. I so appreciate you.
Yeah, let me give my disclaimer again. Any views expressed are mine and mine only. I do not at the time speak as representative of the United States government on any policy, past, future, or present.
All right. Thank you for that. Let me give you some applause and reiterate that.
Yeah. Y'all be safe, man. See y'all in the cyber world.
All right, man. You be blessed. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. All right, guys. That was RL. So at the end of the day, man, I just want you to know, if you got a problem, knock on your senator's door. Knock on the congressperson's door. Reach out to your elected officials, because they are the wheels that can get this process going, turning. Because I'm not going to lie, man, when you look at the optics say one thing, but you got to also look at the internal machine. And you got to look at the process. But the one thing I will say is this: I pray to God we don't never have to go back. And I'm thankful that no president after Joe Biden hopefully will not have to go back. So all I can say is, man, let's pray. But I want to thank all of our veterans. I want to thank all of those who have sacrificed, even those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for being a part of those missions, being deployed, because, the crazy thing about it is that nobody understands a lot of times what soldiers go through. You don't understand, what it takes to become a soldier. It's so easy to say, what we should be doing, da-da-da-da-da. But when you look at the boots on the ground, it's almost like, man, you got to follow these orders. It's not about your opinion. And so I want to take the time to thank our soldiers. It doesn't matter what branch you're in. I thank you and I salute you and I honor you. I honor your sacrifice. I honor your time. And my prayer is that God will bless you. That God will bless you. That doors of favor will open for you. If you need healing, that you will be healed. If you need restoration in any area of your life, my prayer for you is that you will be restored and made whole. But your sacrifice wasn't for naught. You changed the lives of people who you came in contact with. And you made your presence be known. Your presence was known. And people, they will not forget. They will not forget the kindness. They will not forget the goodness. They will not forget the protection. So that's the one thing that I want you to take away from this. Because a lot of you, like RL said, he spent his youth over there. And a lot of you have sacrificed that. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you've given. And even though, man, this thing may look ugly, I believe at the end of the day, that it's going to work out and that we have to trust the process. And I'm just going to believe God, man, that God is going to do something in the Middle East. Do something great. So with that, guys,
walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.